We're here today because as Democrats, we believe that all children in Virginia should have access to high-quality education regardless of where they live, their parents' income, or the color of their skin. We want to provide all of Virginia's students, from preschool through post-secondary, the opportunity to succeed in the 21st century economy. That means fully funding our public schools, attracting and retaining great teachers, and providing an inclusive and supportive environment for all of our students. Speaking of teachers, I want to introduce two of our freshmen who are teachers, Delegate Turpin and Delegate Valkenberg. We are thrilled to welcome them to our caucus. And I want to tell you that we're going to be mentioning only a few of our really terrific education bills this morning. I know some of you already attended a press conference earlier this week in which Delegate LaCherice Aird's budget amendment, which would increase funding for schools that serve low-income students, and Delegate Marcia Price spoke at an earlier press conference about her bill to help borrowers refinance student loans. We also look forward to working with the governor and hopefully our friends on the other side of the aisle to raise teacher pay in Virginia. But today we're going to talk about some of our initiatives that you may not have heard about yet. I want to talk briefly about one of mine, which is HB 199. HB 199 focuses on how we ensure that our students, who these days have just unprecedented access to the internet through any number of devices, how they navigate the pitfalls and opportunities of the internet. From sorting fact from fiction to making smart choices about what to share online, studies show that we're just not doing an adequate job of preparing our students for the digital world, and HB 199 hopes to address that problem. So next up, we're going to start with Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy to talk about HB 442.
Good morning. So I'm here, one of the things that I'm really excited about is pushing for equality in education. And so in my district, approximately 18% of my constituents are Hispanic, and a large portion of them are English as a second language learners. So one of the bills that I have decided to propose this year is HB 442 that passed the Education Subcommittee. And what that bill does, it says that the accommodations that's allotted for ELL students, they have to be notified about it when they take CTE, Career Technical Education courses and tests. So they can have these accommodations that's already allotted to them so they can do well. We want them to be prepared for the global economy and be able to get certifications that they can take into the workforce. So English as a second language learner students, we have a deficit in Prince William and Stafford, meaning we need more teachers. We need more people to be able to provide them a quality education. And right now with the teacher shortage that's happening, it's not occurring. So I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to combat the teacher shortage that we have here in Virginia and do what needs to be done to ensure that everyone has access to a quality education. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. And now we have Delegate Chris Hurst to talk about HJ 75.
Thank you, Delegate Sullivan. Thanks to everybody for being here. My name is Chris Hurst. I represent the 12th District, which is Giles County, part of Pulaski County, and then all of the city of Radford and part of Blacksburg. So I also have in my district the campuses of Virginia Tech and Radford University. More college students live in the 12th District than anywhere else in the Commonwealth. And so having student loan debt myself, being in an area where we have 40,000 college students on campus, during most of the entire calendar year, I want to make sure that we look out for our college students and also make sure that they are ready to enter the workforce with as little debt as possible. And so we talk a lot about student loan debt, but there's also a problem with tuition debt. There are so many students who don't take out loans while they go to school, and while they're trying to work to pay off that debt for their tuition bills while they're currently enrolled, they find that if they can't pay off that bill fast enough, that they can be referred to collections with exorbitant interest rates. And so what we need right now is we need data and we need information to help guide policy in the future for what we're going to do when some of these delinquent bills go into collection. So we've introduced House Joint Resolution 75, which would request that SHEV would study the issue of collection policies by Virginia's public colleges and universities. Currently, under the Virginia Debt Collection Act, public colleges and universities have to outsource the collection of delinquent tuition payments to external collectors, could be the Office of the Attorney General, or these third-party debt collectors, often in other states, after 2 months of that bill not being paid, if it's $3,000 or more. That could be a 30% interest rate that's put on these delinquent bills after 2 months. So imagine starting school in August, you're working, trying to pay off that bill, but you still owe more than $3,000 around Halloween. Now all of a sudden that bill goes to a third-party debt collector at a 30% interest rate, and you're not allowed to continue on at Virginia Tech or Radford or George Mason University until that debt is paid. And this is the cycle that we see not only with tuition delinquency, but also student loan debt problems, is that it is a hindrance and a barrier to be able to get the degree, to get you the job, to be able to help you pay off the bill in the first place. And so we need to make sure that SHEV has a full grasp of what each public college and university is doing when it comes to the tuition loan collection. And we also need to make sure that we have policies in place that help students be able not only to achieve whatever degree they want, but also to make sure that they're able to pay back the Commonwealth for the education they receive in a timely and orderly fashion. And so we are hopeful that HJ 75 will be adopted, and we will be able to study to be able to get more information about this growing and emerging problem. Thank you.
Now we have Delegate Joanne Ward and Skylar von Valkenburg together talking about a series of bills they have addressing staff and teacher support in their schools.
Thank you, and I just want to make mention, when you name those two of us who are currently teachers, believe it or not, I actually still have my certification. I am a certified teacher till
I stand corrected.
2022. All right, the bills I'd like to talk about a little bit are House Bill 317, 320, and 334. And they are recommendations from a task force on diversifying the educator pipeline, which was convened by the Secretary of Education's office last year. The task force found 4,702 teachers who were provisionally licensed in 2012, 2013, and only 3,553 of those have met the requirements for full licensure within the 3 years. So the task force also studied another issue, and that was diversifying the educator pipeline. And we learned that 50% of our students identify as being a minority, yet only 20% of our teachers identify as being a minority. And research has shown that all students perform better throughout their school years if they've had a teacher or have had teachers from diverse backgrounds. And this led us to address some of the issues that may prevent that 24%, regardless of their ethnicity, from meeting all the requirements. And that's what these bills do. House Bill 1317 asks that we extend the time for those to meet those qualifications to reach full licensure. And also House Bill 320 calls for different recommendations for us to meet certain recommendations on teacher reciprocity. All of these things that we have done are basically placed in and positioned so that we can kind of relax some of the unnecessary hurdles that prevent otherwise highly qualified teachers from entering into our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody for being here this morning. My name is Skylar Van Valkenburg, and I represent the 72nd District, which is entirely in Henrico County. Virginia faces a teacher shortage, but we've also seen severe reductions in support staff, counselors, and librarians. And as a public school teacher, I know how vital they are in the education of a child, which is why I have submitted a budget language amendment adding school counselors to the at-risk add-on program. Our teacher and support staff shortages are self-inflicted wounds. They were cuts made to balance the budget during the recession, and they were never restored. These cuts were the single biggest reduction to the composite index that the state uses to fund its constitutional obligations under the SOQs, and they resulted in more than 10,000 overall school staff statewide than we would have had if we had maintained the previous standards before they put the cap on. These cuts also resulted in the loss of more than 3,000 counselors, librarians, and support staff than we would have had at the previous funding level, expanding the number of students each of these specialists serves to unmanageable levels. In my county, which is one of the least impacted due to its ability to make up the state cuts with local funding, we still have 15 fewer specialists relative to student enrollment than we did in 2009. School counselors, like librarians and nurses, are essential to the success of students. Studies consistently show that school counselor programs raise academic proficiency and reduce school suspension and discipline issues. Counseling intervention programs have been proven to narrow the achievement gap and improve pass rates for underrepresented populations. When you raise proficiency across the board, you narrow the achievement gap, you reduce the need for other intervention programs, and you save money in the end as well. When Colorado introduced a grant program to reduce the counselor to student ratio, they estimated that they ended up saving $20 for every $1 they invested, because when you put money in on the front end, right, you save it on the back end. And an increase in spending on these positions will yield savings for the state and localities in the long term. This addition of school counselors to the at-risk add-on program, which goes hand in hand with the bipartisan budget amendment proposed by Delegates O'Quinn and Eric, will provide flexibility to the localities. Our children need specialists sometimes, and their help is important when our kids face disciplinary problems, fall through academic and social cracks, or plan for their college and career future. So as we move into new accreditation standards and the profile of a Virginia graduate, we have to do so ensuring that students and their teachers have the support needed to succeed. Better budgetary priorities for counselors, support staff, and librarians ensures that our support isn't just a temporary Band-Aid. With these fixes, we can start the process of ensuring that students get the education they deserve under our state's constitutional promises, and that the promises offered by Virginia Education are not dependent on your zip code. Thank you.
So I think I just got schooled by Delegate Ford. It'll never happen again. Next, we have Delegate Danica Rome, who's going to talk about two of her pieces of legislation, HB 1477 and HJ 138.
Thank you, Delegate Sullivan, who recruited me to run for this office, by the way, so well done. My name is Danica Rome. I represent the city of Manassas Park, the town of Haymarket, and the Prince William County portions of Manassas and Gainesville. And I am here today to talk to you about two constituent service bills that the constituents of the 13th District asked me to carry. They've got great ideas, and on behalf of the Democratic House Caucus, we listen to our constituents in this caucus. And so the first one came from Gainesville constituent Adele Settle, and this bill, HB 1477, what this would do is basically eliminate the stigma and singling out, and all of the negative consequences that come for a student who can't afford to pay their school lunch debt. And this bill also will ensure that every student in the Commonwealth of Virginia who attends our public schools will have access to breakfast and lunch while they're at school. This is basic, everyone. This is about making sure we're taking care of our kids when they're at school. Because some kids, that's going to be their last meals of the day. They might not get dinner. And when you go into school hungry, you're not thinking about your education, you're thinking about your belly. So we're going to make sure that we take care of them. And then for my other bill, HJ 138, this is a bill from a Manassas resident, Kim Fleming, who knows the absolute horror of what it's like as a parent to outlive your child. And she has asked me to put in this bill, and she lives 2 miles from my house. And I've talked to her many times. I met her when I was knocking doors in her neighborhood. And she's asked me to put in this bill that requests, not requires, but requests school boards throughout the Commonwealth to provide either training documents or actual trainings to all part-time and full-time school employees who work in a school building so they can recognize the signs of suicidal ideation in students. This is the very, very least we can do, and this is a request. And this is our way of saying to the school boards, please do something. We're not going to make an unfunded mandate to you. We've got a lot of great suggestions. Please read the legislation, and you'll even see one of them in there. This is our way of being proactive about this and saying, let's do something to make sure that no parent doesn't have enough resources to make sure that their kids are safe in school, and to make sure that the adults who are there to look after their kids, all of them, from maintenance all the way to the principal, knows that, hey, if they're the kid who's in trouble, they can recognize the signs and they can bring it to the administration's attention. Thank you so much.
Next we have Delegate Alfonso Lopez to talk to us about HB 19.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alfonso Lopez. I represent South Arlington, Eastern Fairfax, arguably the best district in Virginia. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about HB 19, which would codify the DREAM Act and protect in-state tuition for kids who already have DACA. These children are immigrants who were brought to this country at a young age by their parents. Many of them know no other home but Virginia. They are our valedictorians, our class presidents, and the next generation of leaders. Most DACA-approved students would be unable to attend college if they were not eligible for in-state tuition. Without the DREAM Act, we're basically putting up a stop sign to these kids saying, thank you for your hard work, thank you for doing well, but your dreams need to stop. 20 states have already passed DREAM Act bills, including not very blue states like Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado. Here's the thing. Of the approximately 400,000 college-age kids, students in Virginia, only 1,390 would be eligible for DACA or in-state tuition. 1,390 out of 400,000 students. Denying affordable college access to Virginia handicaps our future workforce. In fact, Virginians with a bachelor's degree have a lifetime earning of almost twice those of Virginians with just a high school diploma. Those increased earnings will flow right back into Virginia's local businesses and communities and local state tax rolls. In strictly economic terms, Virginia has already invested millions of dollars into the education of these undocumented children. According to the census, Virginia spends approximately $11,000 per year per student in K through 12. In just 2013 numbers, that means that of the 1,400 students who graduated from Virginia high schools that year, we spent $15.3 million and approximately $200 million over the 13 years that we educated those kids. So to nurture and educate these students from elementary through high school, only to turn them away when they reach college age, is not only a waste of money, but a waste of great talent and great potential. Education quickly pays for itself. It's a benefit to society, not just to those who go to school. The answer is clear. Protecting in-state tuition for DACA and Dreamer students is the right thing to do for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfonso. Now finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have Delegate David Reed and HB 350.
Thank you, Delegate Sullivan, for organizing this today, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm David Reed, the delegate representing the 32nd District, which is the eastern part of Loudoun County. As Delegate Sullivan said, I want to be able to speak today about House Bill 350, and this is about the fact that there are still 3 jurisdictions within the state of Virginia that do not have universal full-day kindergarten. So those 3 jurisdictions are Loudoun County, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake. And it's interesting when you start talking to individuals about the fact that we need to look at early childhood development and things that we can do to expand in that area, and you bring up the fact that there are still 3 jurisdictions that don't have universal full-day kindergarten, and that's quite a surprise to a lot of people. What House Bill 350 does is it asks those 3 jurisdictions to actually share their plan, the information, the lessons learned that they have gotten in moving forward with implementing the ability to have universal full-day kindergarten so that we can learn from each other, because those are 3 jurisdictions that are spread out across different parts of the state, and I want to be able to leverage what they're doing in Virginia Beach and in Chesapeake so that perhaps we can get further along in Loudoun County. And likewise, I think that there's a lot of innovative and creative things that are being done in Loudoun County that might be applicable to those jurisdictions as well. So House Bill 350 asks those 3 jurisdictions to provide their reports, provide the lessons learned, and most importantly, to tell us what we can do here at the state to help them be successful. So that's what I'm asking to be done in House Bill 350. In addition to that, because Loudoun County is the fastest growing county in the state, we have a plan and we have the desire to be able to provide full-day kindergarten to everyone. We just don't have the facilities. So I have asked the state to provide an additional, I've submitted a budget amendment that would provide an additional small amount of funding that would help Loudoun County build additional full-day kindergarten classrooms at 2 existing elementary schools so that we can provide those services to those children and those parents. So that's House Bill 350, and thanks very much for everyone being here, and thank you, Delegate Sullivan.